I want to ask you though. Tell me about something that we don't learn from history, like what happened when in between missions. Like I think you told me sometime that you'd get up in planes and you'd go up country just to fly, put hours in.
We flew missions every day. But every day with the whole Air Force, see, when the weather was good, see, and Doolittle would in other words, we didn't fly in thunderstorms and stuff like that, and they picked out the targets and give us the routes to avoid anti-aircraft fire and all that. See, the Germans with their ground fire, they would put it where the most important targets were. We would try to fly around that and avoid that stuff, see.
What about some unusual stories, like when you weren't on missions? Some of the guys like yourselves had to keep up with flying, so you would go up in an airplane.
Well, what happened here is, and when a pilot completes his training, he has to remain active, and he has to fly 10 hours every 30 days to keep active. You know what I mean? So when I'd want to go somewhere, see a friend of mine. All these pilots would come into my office here, and to get the time, I would say, well, let's get a B-17, and he and I would get the B-17 and fly up and see my friend 200 miles away or something like that, and then come back. Like you would go visit somebody, see? And people think it's foolishness. No, he has to get the time in, so he would do that, you know. And if anytime I want to go anywhere, I'd just get a B-17, and you know, because half of the airplanes were flying and the other half were sitting on the ground being repaired and stuff, so it was no problem. It's like going outside here and going out of my hangar and going. So this was, and it was perfectly legal as far as that goes, you know, because he was getting his time in, and I learned to fly. I could fly him, or they could fly him, and all it would take was just a pilot and a co-pilot. It takes two of them in there to do it. But on missions, then it's got to be a navigator, it's got to be a bombardier, and an engineer, and tail gunners, and nose gunners, and all this kind. It takes 12 to 13 people to form a crew. See? But then they had to fly, I think it was 10 hours a month, if I'm right, to keep current. See, even now, even we in civilian flying, you've got to get so many hours in every 6 months or something like that. See? Now, what I'd have to do right now is I haven't flown for 30 years. I flew for 30, 40 years. I would have to go get an instructor pilot to ride with me and check me out, and then I'd be okay. Then I could go for another 6 months or something like this. I forget what it all is, but that's the way it's done. Because you've got to, it's something that you've got to keep doing. Or you forget, you know what I mean. You've got to stay active.
Do you have any crazy stories about when you guys took planes up when you weren't on a mission? Any funny stories relating to anything like that?
Where they didn't do what?
Any just crazy stories that when you weren't working, when you weren't on a mission, like just goofing around? What was
they didn't goof around, I'll tell you. No damn goofing around in a war. Because we flew formation, and we flew daylight missions, and our defense was get bombers very tight, and we had 10 to 12 machine guns in a bomber. Well, you take the Germans would stay away 5 miles or so from us, because they wouldn't even get close. If they would, they'd have to fly through all this bullet structure. Now the British, they flew at night, and they flew individually. That the enemy could only get one bomber or thing at a time, see? But in daylight flying, that was like when we would take off from England, we had to circle and keep going way up to get up to 10,000 feet or more before we could get across the channel to be where it was safe, see, to get above anti-aircraft fire. And so that's, of course, but a lot of the planes, like when it got over, as the Germans, they would have all of their aircraft fire over targets like factories and things like this where they were bombs. See? Well, so you avoided these where you could, you know, but you had to. You went in and done it. See? But You know, I could tell all kinds of stories. Like we kept getting new crews in at the time. We had two crews come in here. They were brothers, and they wanted to fly together. They completed all the flying. They wanted to fly together. So what they would do, we'd send them both out together on a mission. You know what I mean? Each with a bomber. Well, I got pictures here. And one brother got shot down, and his other brother there looking at him. The whole crew went down and lost it all. You know what I mean? See, this is because that's what they wanted to do. See, and there's a lot of human stuff that only you people will never understand it. I can understand it because I lived it. See, and they lived it. But after all, like I say, in the evenings, what do? We played checkers and went out to the club and drank beer together, or to entertain ourselves for the next day, see, because every day you worked, and you know, Sunday was just another day that you recall that we had to provide bombers to go do this. If like when we flew short missions, we would fly 2 full missions in a day, where they started using these damn buzz bombs, and they could hide them in trees, and the Germans would put them on a truck and hide over there, and all we do is go over the coast and try to find them and drop bombs on them or something, see? And the British, they flew at night individually then, the reason for that, then they only can get 1 bomber. But the Germans, whenever we go on a mission, these fighters will be out there 6, 7, 8 miles all around us. Let one of them lose an engine or something, start dragging back and knocking them off. Let one of them start coming down and have pilots going out with parachutes. They shoot the parachute guys, I think. That's what they did. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
But it's this kind of stuff. I've got drawers of pictures of this because I used to have pictures of everything like that, and I used to. I could. Well, since I was charger, I could do what I wanted on stuff like this, but I done it all legally, you know, and I knew it, and that's why I and a couple other people were in charge of the whole thing. The other ones is like airplanes. When you fly, after they fly so many, you get new aircraft, or we get new crews, and they come and they go. They don't stay long, and everything had to come in through my office area. We had to retrain them, refly them, tell them how they would war conditions, what to avoid, how to do this, and set down the laws and all that, because my office is open 24 hours a day.
So, you've lived this experience. A lot of people, once your generation is gone, what message, because it's impossible for me to appreciate what it was like living during that time, what message would you...
One thing that I told you that today we have people that don't listen. And what we were taught, the first thing is yes sir, no sir, no excuse, sir. You didn't explain to no superior person above you. When we walked down the street, if there's a guy had an officer's thing on, we had to salute him, you know. What happened, I go to the mess hall, and there'd be thousands of people going to the same mess hall, and officers walking across the street there. Every damn officer wants saluted. Hey, you don't do it, you forget it. And what happened to me is a couple officers called me in once. Come on down to the jailhouse. You didn't salute Officer so-and-so. I said, yes, sir. So I went down. So when I got down there and they put me in the jailhouse, well, they put me into the jail. The MPs picked me up. I said, give me the telephone. So I called back. I called my boss back there and said, hey, they're going to put me in jail because they didn't salute an officer. They let me have the phone. That officer, if they didn't kick the shit out of him, then you just don't do that kind of stuff. But even though you're supposed to, you're required to do it. How do you walk down a mess hall and pass 500 people and salute everyone as an officer? It's, you know, baloney. You do certain things like that. But they didn't realize who I was, see? And they called that officer in. Well, he would never do that again. You know, it's foolishness that you got to do certain things like that, which you're required to do, see? But there's so many little things like that after 5 years of it, you go through it, you do what you have to do. We've had a lot of people go out every night and drink and drink and drink. A lot of them drink and try to fly airplanes and stuff.